couple of months ago, I made a video in which I stated why I think KSI would beat Jake Paul if they were to fight in 2023. Fortunately, the fight is set to happen, with both parties agreeing to duke it out in the ring. So of course anticipation is set at an all-time high, and people, at least in my circles, are already placing bets and making speculations. Of course, with the recent fights both JJ and Jake have undergone, my thoughts and opinions on both fighters have significantly changed, but not in the way you'd expect. Do I still think KSI will beat Jake when they do fight next year? The answer isn't so simple. After taking my special edition KSI dildo out of my ass, I have predicted 4 possible outcomes of the fight, no dick riding included. So let's run through each scenario. Believe it or not, for the first scenario, I think KSI versus Jake would be a battle of technique. JJ has already stated many times that he wants to work on his form and is even making that a priority. Furthermore, many people have speculated that this is the only area JJ struggles with. He's got the strength, the endurance, and the stamina down packed, but his shit technique is what's truly holding him back from reaching his true potential. Being that Jake is literally around the same size as JJ, he won't be fighting somebody ridiculously bigger than him in which he'd have to swing, nor would he be fighting a smaller opponent. Since they'd both be of the same size, this will give both fighters a fair advantage when it comes to the height perception. However, I'd have to give it to Jake if the fight turns out to be anything like this first scenario. Jake is a sound fighter, whose technique was practically patched up by the time of the fight with Silva, a very formidable opponent despite his age. Just look at the fight with Tyrone Woodley, the second one. Besides the insane amount of power in his right hand, Jake is also extremely strategic, waiting on just the right moment to land an attack. He's calculated, steady, and never in a hurry to rush. Even if JJ were to somehow fix his technique in the short time span he has left, Jake has been mastering his for years. Even more, Jake is a counter striker, and despite JJ's strong chin, Jake only needs that one hit to send KSI straight to the sleepover. As much as it pains me to say this, KSI's biggest weakness is his form, which ironically is Jake's greatest strength. So let's look into the second scenario. In this one, we have JJ being the wild aggressor. Just like most of his fights, KSI was the one chasing his opponents around the ring, swinging with tremendous strength and putting on an insane amount of pressure. Let's face it, none of the fighters Jake has ever gone against has had the strength nor the pressure KSI himself wields. Jake is a fighter who usually needs time to read out his opponents. He only lets the hands fly freely when he sees the opportunities, such as his opponents being tired, off guard, or all out of moves. And we usually see Jake still getting tired by the later rounds, often slowing his offensive and relying on grappling. Unfortunately for him, KSI wants a brawl. KSI has shown multiple times that he can go the distance. JJ loves a slugfest, mainly because he has the chin, the strength, and the endurance to back him up. And this is something that's consistent with all of his battles. If KSI keeps on pressuring Jake, it will give Jake no time to plan, strategize, or even probably defend himself. And on the other hand, KSI only needs that right overhand to connect in order for Jake to hit the floor hard. Now, while I definitely see KSI winning with the second scenario, there's still a strong possibility that Jake could manage to sneak a counter hit and catch JJ off guard. Remember, Jake is a counter fighter. He himself only needs that right overhand to send JJ to the canvas. But as shown with Pineda, JJ can also switch between forms, which might throw Jake off and make it harder for him to launch a counterattack altogether. But if Jake does catch JJ off guard, which he probably will, then I'd also have to give it to Jake. Therefore, this scenario is up for grabs and can go either way. This then leads to the third scenario, Jake being the aggressor. While I think this is the least likely thing to happen, it's still a possibility. Jake could put the constant pressure on KSI, forcing JJ to try and defend himself throughout the ring. But again, I just don't see it happening. You see, Jake usually wins his matches by relying on points or searching for pockets in his opponent's offensive to send them to the canvas. I don't think it'd be in his best favor to leave this strategy behind, especially dealing with someone of JJ's strength and endurance. When dealing with fighters like KSI, you would usually either wait for a counter-strike or tire them out and then piece them apart. And remember, again, KSI wants a brawl. If anything, I think KSI would want Jake to be in his face when they fight. That way, the battle will rely on pure strength, determination, and instinct alone. And as we all know by now, this isn't what wins Jake's his fights, but instead what wins JJ's his. For this scenario, I think JJ would sweep easily. And now for the fourth and final scenario. For the fourth scenario, there could be two things that would happen, with the results ending in the same way. Either KSI and Jake show a level of equality when fighting and end up in a draw, or they both hold back punches out of fear of being knocked down and still end up in a draw. I could definitely see the first option of these two. As JJ said before, Jake will be his last destination in boxing, so he wants to give his all for this match. On the flip side, Jake knows that if KSI beats him, his legacy is over. Everything these guys have been doing up to now would have led to this, and in the end, it would seem as if neither of them could knock each other out. Very unlikely, but it's still a possibility. So yeah, that's basically it. I know the fourth one was a bit underwhelming, but hey, it's happened before and it could definitely happen again. So what do you guys think? What's on your mind? Who do you think's going to win the fight? Are you still excited? Do you want to see this fight? I'd love to know your thoughts below.
Home free! Home free! Home free! Let go! Let go! That bit my tape, boy. Big, boy.
Nigga, they doing push-ups.
Boy, I see you, boy.
No, this Ray.
That little Ray.
Man, this ain't
That
Ray.
little Ray.
Hey, Ray. What the fuck, man?
That little Ray.
Hey.
That little Ray.
I love you, boy.
God,
Hey,
God.
Ray got big as fuck, man.
Hey, Ray cold on the field,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Hey,
Cold.
the demon home, too, pussy.